Hey, everybody, welcome to the Green Cover Podcast, where we have really interesting conversations with some of the top farmers and experts in the regenerative ag world. Join us as we learn together how to regenerate God's creation for future generations. Have you ever thought there's got to be a better way to grow my crops and to market my crops? I think most of us as producers have thought that. And our guest today, Mr. Greg Thoren from Illinois, he's done more than just think about that. He's actually accomplished that, and he has found that there are different ways and better ways. And so we love working with people like Greg who are willing to think outside their traditional box and to think about new ways, better ways to not only grow their crops, but also to market them. So, Greg, welcome to the Green Cover Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Should be an interesting event here.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. Well, you and I have talked at various events that we've been at together. Yeah, you've been buying green cover seed for a while, so I know a little bit about you and your background. But for the sake of the listening audience, go ahead and just share a little bit of your background, where you're farming, how long you've been there, and just some of what's led you to the point where you're at now.
Okay, I live in the far northwest corner of Illinois. So to the west of our county is Iowa, to the north of our county is Wisconsin. So we're right up in the far northwest corner.
Mhm.
We're in the driftless area, so we are not flat and black by any means. We do have some glaciated land in the northeastern part of the county. I farm primarily driftless land, more rolling, some very productive land, but yet some very tough land also, poor soils. Cow-calf operation, we raise corn, soybeans, uh, basically weed, oats, forages for our livestock, and everything's no-till. We run about 2,200 acres. Everything is no-till, cover crop, um, doing strong regenerative practices. I have been certified Regenified in the fifth tier the last 2 years. I just got in the process of being recertified right now for the third year, so we'll see where that comes out at.
Well, that's a lot, and yeah, you sound like our kind of people. So that's why you're on here. So, Greg, in your area, how common is it for people to have livestock and to have crops other than just corn and soybeans? Is that somewhat common in your area, or are you kind of an outlier with the crops you're growing?
Daviess County is the largest beef cattle, cow calf, I believe, county in the whole state of Illinois.
Okay.
It used to be the largest dairy for a number of head of dairy cows, but it is no longer that. So there again, with our topography, we do have the advantage of a lot of pasturing. We should have more perennials on the ground than we do. A lot of pastures have been turned into annual crop production for various reasons, like across the country, and we're seeing the ramifications of that in erosion, wind erosion, and more so with our uh, hills, you might say, so a lot of soil erosion.
Yeah, and you're not unique in Illinois for that. I think there's a lot of areas that could say the exact same thing that we should get some of this marginal ground back to perennials. But that's probably a whole other podcast episode. So probably a little more diversified than what a lot of people would think of for Illinois. But even with that, you're still pushing into a lot of areas. So one of the first things, Greg, that I want to talk about here that I think people will find very interesting, because it's a hot topic. We get lots of questions about corn interseeding. What can we plant in between our rows of corn? What has a chance of success? Lots of people have been experimenting with it. We've been doing it, on our own plots, and I know you've been doing it as well. And I want you to just talk a little bit about how, things you've tried with interseeding into corn, the timing, the seeds, how you're getting it in there, your row spacing. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's one of the unique things that you're doing in your area there.
Originally, we started interseeding corn in 30-inch rows. Actually, we used a spreader, a high clearance spreader truck or a applicator,
Hmm.
and we did have good germination. We actually that first year just put cereal rye down to see if things would work. Cereal rye did germinate. We had plenty of rain. Uh, the corn was probably fourth collar, you might say,
Hmm.
and it did grow. Of course, it can't as the corn got taller. We plant about 32 to 36,000 population. It basically it starved that cereal rye for sunlight,
Yeah.
and it fell over and basically died. Herbicide wise, we were watching that also at that time. Uh, Transitioned into actually now this year we're going to have about 200 acres of 60-inch row corn, and we're doing things somewhat different than we did even 3 years ago with that. But I'm trying to interseed some species on certain of these acres that have a higher rate of herbicide on, but we'll go read herbicide labels and see what crops, annual crops will grow in that herbicide, and then use
Hmm.
that as our interseeding mix also. Not all of it will be that way.
Sure.
We're going to have two different mixes from your company this year, and very excited to try that. And then we'll have some a local seed house here to do some mixing for us. Um, 60 intros. Actually, I've got the opportunity to work with Bob Recker out of Waterloo, Iowa. He has been working with 60 intros for quite a number of years, and he's pretty excited about this because we also have virtual fencing for our cattle. We started this last October,
Hmm.
and actually out at the uh, Regen Nexus at Omaha this past year, I ate with him at one meal, and we were talking about the 60 intro, and I showed him the app on my phone with these neck bands with virtual fencing, and he just lit up like a light. He says, "This is what's going to make the 60-inch row work," and I
Yeah.
said, "Yes, because you'd have two income sources off of it.
Yeah.
Very simple." So this is going to be a fun year to see how this works. And with Bob this year, we're doing some straight 60s. We're doing various populations. I have one hybrid that it's actually, double ear at
Mm.
28,000 in 30-inch rows, double to triple ear, they claim. So we're putting that in, we're trying some of that in 60-inch rows, and generally in a 60-inch row, we'll keep the same population per acre. So
Mhm.
basically those plants are half as close together as a
Right.
30-inch row. So if they were, say, 7 inches apart in a 30-inch row, they're going to be 3.5 inches apart in a 60-inch row.
Pretty tight.
But
Yeah.
we're we're going to I actually planted some of these, did a lot of populations. That's pretty easy to do with the technology nowadays, but we planted some of these 60s in 40,000 population, and hopefully we'll get some double ears and different things here, but we won't know unless we try, is what it amounts to. And this is all no-till. We split 60-inch rows from the last couple of years. Actually, I have several fields that'll be third-year corn, hoping that if I can figure this interseeding out, I can almost maybe go continuous corn on this. Don't know that yet, but I'm
Yeah.
hoping to, because soybeans, I don't need soybeans as much as I do. Well,
Sure.
I can use corn better, and I think it's better. I can build organic matter better and stuff too. Um,
Yeah.
on the bean side, as far as extra income in that, we've grown food grade soybeans probably for 15 or 20 years, and we still do non-GMO food grade soybeans. We
Hmm.
just so this all these regenerative practices, non-GMO seed, different things, they just work with the system. How we interseed our 60-inch row corn is I have a 15-foot uh, drill, a 3-point drill, and then we just move some double disc openers, take a couple off, move them around, and then we'll just actually interseed with that. So we have a controlled spill with the drill, and that seemed to work very well last year. I did not get out in time last year. My corn was too tall for me last year when I interseeded. This year we're on top of things, and as long as I get my seed from green cover in time, we'll be right on the money as far as putting this
It's
in.
on the
So
way.
I'm
It's
really
on the
excited.
way.
Good, good. So
Yeah.
this will be a good thing. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
very excited.
So you mentioned, Greg, that first year you were spinning it on, it was probably at V4 or so. Is that kind of what you're shooting for yet, or are you trying to go just a little bit earlier now that, you've got a little experience?
I want to go earlier. I think actually we have our soil temperatures have been very cool. We're running anywhere from 47 to 51 degrees the last 3 weeks, you might
That's
say.
yeah, that's
It's cool.
chilly.
And things just are not growing. They're there, but they're just not growing. Now it's supposed to get warmer this weekend and they'll take off. But um, I would like to get height wise, even if go height wise, if I could get that plant seeded, say when it's 8 inches to a foot tall, even if you want to go that way, I think I'd be happier. Last year, actually, I was snapping corn off with the tractor. It was too tall
Hmm.
on the belly of the tractor. So, I mean, these are just things. And all this is a timing thing in my
Yeah.
mind. It's all a timing thing. And going
Well,
back to even mixes that, and maybe you want to talk about the mixes that we're doing with I want to say the Rick Clark mix. I'm going to say with the different families in there. I think that's going to be very beneficial. But yet I want something too that will stay green, will stay there to harvest because I do want to graze it with my livestock. And some of
yeah.
that will stockpile and graze through the winter also.
Well, it's going to be very interesting because, the mixes that we sent you have a lot more diversity than what most corn interseeding mixes would have. In fact, you're going to try, I think, maybe 20 acres of the milpa mix that will have the squash and the pumpkins and the gourds. And that'll be really interesting. Cucumbers, all that to see how that does. And then, yeah, just others that are just focusing on plant family diversity to try to really maximize that. But the key, doesn't matter what plants you have there, if they're not getting any sunlight, they're probably not going to grow. So that 60-inch row is really a pretty big key for that, right?
Yes, you need sunlight. And everything I've seen in the past too, you'd have to have sunlight. We do have, with the way our land lays, we can't plant everything east and west. So we've got some east and west, we've got some north and south, and some, things are on the contour. So it does vary throughout the field, but sunlight is the key.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier, on your 60-inch rows, you said you're trying some populations at 40,000. Does that 40,000 within that 60-inch row, so that'd be the equivalent of 20 on a 30-inch row?
No. Yes, that is correct. That is
Okay,
correct.
so
Yes,
so about 50% less plants
yes,
than what you would normally do, but you're counting on a really big flexing hybrid that can put multiple
correct.
ears on.
Yes, this one hybrid will do that, they claim. So we'll put her to the test. And then
Yeah.
I've gone the other way with other hybrids that we've planted in the 60-inch row, and Bob Recker wanted to do suggested this too. We planted as high as I want to say in the upper 30s uh population. So I've got like in the up, well, say even close, I even did some at 40, I think. So we've got 80,000 in the
So
row. So
you
that
got to
is
plant
if
like
they're
every
getting,
2.5 inches.
yes, if they all drop, if they all germ, and that too. So yes,
Yeah. Yeah. What have you seen, Greg, on yields? I don't know if you've been doing 60s versus 30s enough. And I know, PFI, Practical Farmers of Iowa, has had a number of really good studies on this. Have you seen a yield drop on your 60-inch corn versus your 30?
I would say definitely yes. The way I had been doing it in the past, every year we think we're going to get better, get closer to that 30-inch row. So we'll see what happens this year. But there again, a lot of playing around and experimenting this year. Um, I definitely have seen a less yield, but yet we'll have in certain spots of the field. There's various reasons for the lesser yield. It can be the cover crop didn't grow as much, and there's more weeds there. Usually foxtail come in, whatever. A lot of different variables because my soil varies so much.
Yeah.
But I have also had 200 bushel plus corn in areas in those fields, over 200 bushel corn, and that's really good for the type of land I farm. So,
Yeah.
and plus I have a cover crop underneath that we do graze, and that's the key is I can take less yield and have forage and we've calculated some forage results in some of this and it can be up to $200 an acre worth of forage out there after you combine that corn, so I can take quite a bit less yield. And then I'm a low input farmer too, that my inputs are very low. I don't use any phosphorus or potash or any other synthetic fertilizers except low rates of nitrogen, naked seed, no insecticides, no fungicides. We do use herbicides. um, so, we don't have a lot out there in
Hmm.
equipment wise too. Tractors, tractors, planters, sprayer, and a combine's all we have.
Yeah, fairly simple. Yeah, low cost,
Simple.
low overhead. So that really helps, especially in tough economic times, because when margins are tight, if you don't get the yield, you can be reducing on the cost side and still be profitable.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
I've been keen on that for quite a few years. Is it's not about the bushels per acre, it's about your net return per acre, and everybody knows that. But I think we need to
Well,
keep driving that
yeah,
home.
we all know it, but that doesn't mean we
Yeah,
all follow it because, yeah, you still, there's still social pressure. There's still, guys say, yeah, how'd your corn do this year? And yeah, we all want to have the biggest yields we can, but you're right. When it comes right down to it, it's the biggest profit per acre is what's going to keep you
but
going.
Keith, why do we want the biggest yields? Because the more we produce, the lower the price is. There's too much on the market, Keith. We have to think different. We have to think nutrient dense. I really think we and theoretically they claim the less yield you have, the more nutrient dense it is,
Well, yeah, and
depending
that
how you produce it.
totally makes sense. And so that's a great segue, Greg, into kind of the next topic I want to talk about because you are growing more nutrient dense grains. That's been tested. You know that. And you're capturing some of that value in that market. So talk a little bit about, the testing that's been done on some of your grain, how it's different, and then how you're marketing that and capturing a premium.
Well, basically, I'm probably not up on the nutrient testing like I should be as far as numbers and knowing where everything exactly is at, but it is quite a bit better than conventional grain. And how I compare to other people, I don't exactly know that. But the the program when I guess I start how I got into this is with Regenified.
Hmm.
We've been doing these practices for 5 or 6 years and to various extent, and I thought, well, uh, when Regenified, this is like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I thought I always thought an awful lot of understanding ag, and I've been to some soil health one soil health academy up here in Wisconsin, and watch a lot of YouTubes and listen to podcasts and stuff through the years. So I got a hold of Regenified. It was late in the season. I was going to do it in the spring and got busy here 2 years ago, and I called them in August and asked if they could do something to that yet, and they said, yeah, we can make. Let me check, but we can make this work. I think in September. So they actually came out and verified me the first year in September, and and for the practices that we're doing and what they saw, what I was doing is I got certified in the top tier, which is I figured I'd probably be in maybe there's 5 different tiers, uh, and I thought I'd maybe be in the kind of the middle tier,
Hmm.
maybe the middle top. I didn't have any idea I'd be in the top
Yeah,
tier, but
most people don't start at tier five, Greg. That's pretty good.
no, well, that's it. Yeah, where do you go from there? Only down. So that's what I'm looking for. See,
Yeah, that's right.
but I'm hopefully not. But so anyway, that's where we're at. So, and my thing was, yeah, I've got my food grade soybeans. I get a premium for those, have for years. But my corn, I also had issues with my non-GMO corn, getting premium off that. So I thought, well, this will be an opportunity to gain some more revenue with the non-GMO corn was with the premiums through Regenify. So we did that. Now, to back up, I have been selling premium crops since I've been out of high school and I graduated in 1975, but it was in the hay marketing end,
Okay.
horse hay. So we've had our whole career and we're still selling some, but my mindset has changed around in that because I want to keep that carbon at home instead of selling it.
Yep. Yep.
Same way with straw. We've got a stripper head where we used to clip everything to the ground to straw and take it off to the horse market. Now I've got a stripper head and there's no straw that leaves my farm. Everything stays and it just adds to the benefits of everything we're doing.
Good for
But
you. Yeah.
so it's all marketing. It's all about uh, marketing. It's about net return. It's about not spending as much to produce a crop, but yet having that net return better. Um, yeah, there's a lot of factors there, but it really works nice when it does.
Yeah, yeah. And so I was actually doing a webinar earlier today with Regenified. Solar was hosting it. And so we were just chatting a little bit. about that, and he was saying that, your grain, a lot of your corn is you're shipping to California, right? A lot of it goes to feed turkeys, is that right? And
Yes.
he's saying that those turkeys coming out of that barn eating your grain that, has this tested higher nutrient density, they're showing significantly higher levels of nutrient density in the turkey meat because of this corn, in which one would expect, but they're verifying that, and they're proving that now. And so that's just got to be really encouraging, I would think, to you to know that there's a better product going onto the plates of the American consumer, partly because of how you're growing your corn.
Yes, yeah, and I'm very satisfied with that. In working through Regenified, I keep telling them I can sell my corn to EDM down near Clinton, Iowa, 45 minutes away, and I can do all this other stuff. But I'm in my mind, I'm producing a food consumable product.
Hmm.
I'm not. I don't want to put it through a byproduct system, you might say, or processing system. Let's go through livestock. Let's get it into the human food chain directly, rather than through processing.
And so this is really interesting because I had this conversation with someone just the other day. Do you think it changes your mindset, Greg, when you know that what you're growing is going to end up either directly or indirectly right on someone's plate versus knowing that what you're growing is just going to produce fuel that's going to go in somebody's car? Does that change your mindset as a farmer?
It changed my mindset. I don't know if it changes every farmer's mindset, but it changes my mindset. It truly does. And one of the things is we do direct market some beef. We have for years in small amounts. Where it seems like more and more, but just had a customer pick up a quarter of beef yesterday, and he drove 100 miles to pick it up,
Hmm.
and he's actually a chiropractor in around the suburbs of Chicago.
Okay.
And he was saying too the quality of the meat, and he talks to people about this, and a lot of people just don't get it. They just, and he doesn't push it, but the ones that do, and he says there's just so much night and day difference of of the meat quality that we have compared to the grocery store or other people. We're into some grass finished animals here too. Um, it's what they eat. It's no different than us. It's what they eat is what the outcome is. Nutrient dense, flavor, you know, the whole thing. It's unbelievable what we can do if we do it properly and do it like nature.
Yeah, and when you know you're growing that product that's going to be eaten, well, by your family or your neighbors
Hmm.
or friends or, customers, it does change the way you do things.
Hmm.
I was I was just listening to a webinar that or a video that Molly Englehart made, and you know how there's the Impossible Burger out on the market,
Hmm.
made out of plants. Well, she's marketing the What is Possible burger. So a burger made out of really good regeneratively grown beef, instead of impossible, it's what is possible. And what's possible is really high quality taste, really high quality nutrient density, grown in a very humane way. And, it's just a win for everybody.
Yes, yes, and it definitely is, Keith. It truly is. And we don't have to change the system around that much to get all these advantages, but you do
Yeah.
have to change.
So talk a little bit about how are you growing? So is it all grass, 100% grass fed? Are you doing that on perennials or annuals or a combination? What does that look like within your system?
My system is on the finished end. I've got a group. We just started with our first grass finished animal last August that we slaughtered. It was one how this came about. It was a calf the year before that got out of the corral when we were working him, and so we just left him with I think with the cows even, and he was on grass the first year. Overwintered him on forages, no grain again. Finished them on grass last summer. We moved them daily,
Hmm.
so they got fresh feed every day, and I think that's a fantastic thing as far as the quality of meat. Plus, they're getting a lot of diversity. They're probably having, I'm going to say, minimum of 20 different species that they've got to choose from. And by the time you even add in what we call weeds or undesirables, they may have 30 or plus.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised with this first animal we did, and maybe it's beginner's luck, but we're going to have two this year to be harvested in late August, 1st September. But the quality of meat, uh, it was a lot redder. Everyone says proper grass finished animals are, and decent marbling. Actually, the ground doesn't look any different than you might say lot finished
Mm-hmm.
uh, ground. And the flavor wasn't grassy tasting at all. It was good, but I attribute that to the diversity of the species.
Yeah.
Now going back to my lot finished cattle, we finish on about I bet we're at least a 50% 50% roughage uh, uh, ration, and we have all non-GMO. We have all non-GMO corn that we feed. I buy nothing as far as feed wise. The only thing I buy is salt in loose salt, loose mineral. Everything else I produce, but those cattle also, I will not chop corn silage anymore. I will not chop haylage anymore. We use diverse anywhere from say 12 to 18 way mix of cover crops, and we'll chop that and
Mm-hmm.
then sile that or bag it, and then we feed them usually two different types of hay: a first crop hay, grassier hay. Then we'll feed them a second or third crop bale too, from a different farm. So they're probably getting, I would say, a minimum of 40 different species there. Plus, they're getting high moisture, um, non-GMO corn. And there again, that grain ration, that grain in that mix is, I bet it weight wise, it's not 50%. I know
Yeah.
it isn't. And this coming year for diversity, I wanted to do this last year. It didn't work out the season wise, but we planted peas. We chopped this last year actually and forage, made a great mix: peas, oats, wheat, and barley.
Mm-hmm.
This year we did peas, oats, spring wheat, and spring barley, and we're going to harvest that for grain.
Okay.
I'm going to
Yeah.
put that in the harvester silo. Now, if I want to put some corn with that, we'll load this. Haul this up to the harvester silo on a semi. But I want to put some corn on that, so I have five different grains. I could
Mm-hmm.
I could put that on top of it and have it blend on top of the semi load. Have it blend in. By the time it comes out, it'll be blended. Run that all through a roller mill. And what got me onto that is my mother had a thresher's book from 1916 from our actually her father was in there, and most all of the there's this one local family had actually two thresh machines back then, and they had all the farmers' names that they custom threshed for. They had oats, wheat, barley, spelt. Some of them had rye, some of them had some red clover. But I thought, man, they got all these small grains. That makes so much sense
Yeah.
as far as ease of planting earlier in the spring, weed suppression. I know they grew corn, but it was all basically check planted corn back then and on the hills and stuff. I imagine they might have had the corn, maybe they even fed their hogs these small grains too. I don't know, but I don't know how much corn they had, but I know they did have corn. But it was so much easier for them to handle than you're picking corn. They could go, they could shuck. Everything was harder, don't get me wrong, but they could shuck this stuff, dry it down, or have it dry in the field and harvest or whatever they did, and then thresh it. So I thought that was interesting. So if they could do it, why can't we do it? And the
Yeah.
nicest part about it is I might not be able to produce the same amount of energy or tonnage as I can with, say, 225, but 225 bushel corn, but I've only got $50 an acre seed in this and no fertility. So
That's
I
pretty
don't
cheap
need
feed.
that volume.
Yeah.
So there again, it's all about the net. Um, so we're going to see what happens. I
Yeah.
think this is
And
going to be interesting.
And the peas, peas are a great food source because, soybeans, you have to cook them in order to release the proteins to the animal, but peas, you don't have to do that. So you can feed, run those through that roller mill and they'll be able to take advantage of all that protein in those peas. So that's a great system. That's a great choice and look forward to hearing how that works. So from the marketing side, do you think that there's potential to market more of these animals direct? And do you feel like more and more people are going to be wanting the grass-fed version of what you're doing versus the grain-fed?
I think if you're into the right markets, we have, I know a local producer here in the county that's a few years older than I that has been doing grass finished animals, chickens, hogs, different things, or I mean, at least the beef cattle, but he's had organic hogs and chickens and different things.
Hmm.
Um, and we talk pretty uh, detailed sometimes, which is good. And there's a huge market for grass fed if you find it. But it has to be quality grass fed like anything else. Um, and realistically, with the topography that we have, I can do some both ways, but we're going to go from one grass fed animal to uh, say a year, 14 months from now, I'm going to have probably 25. So I have to find homes for that too. So
Yeah.
we'll see once what happens. Or maybe I'll market it through a grass fed finisher anyway. I don't know that.
Yeah. I know in our area here, one of the big limiting factors in trying to do what you're wanting to do is just local processing capacity.
Mhm.
Do you have troubles getting your animals processed for people, or do you have some pretty good processing partners?
It's tough. I think everywhere, just like you said, Keith, everywhere across the country, there's not the processors. When I was in high school, there was probably a family that slaughtered in probably about every town
Yep,
in the
there
county.
was.
And
Yeah.
and there's actually to date, there is nobody in our county that slaughters.
Hmm.
We've got to go to, out of state or to the county to the east, which is fine. They're fantastic people and they do a fantastic job. And they're multi-generationals, several of these, but they're having trouble too trying to find someone to take over the business.
Yeah.
The one's 3 generations deep and there's nobody there to take it over. So it's kind of like the farming scenario.
Hmm. Yeah. So lots of opportunities there. If someone wants to get into that, I think you would have I think you'd have as many head to process as what you could handle. So, but not an easy thing to get started and get started up. So you've been doing a lot of very innovative things, from the interseeding to the wide row corn to the, Regenified, pushing into these new markets and stuff. Those are all things that you are doing. What are some things that you are thinking about doing or trying? You talked a little bit about, some of the experiments you're doing with Bob Recker and that's really interesting. But what are some other things, Greg, kind of on your mind of, areas you'd like to push into in the next few years, whether it's on the production side or the marketing side?
I'm sure something will come up. I don't have anything on the tip of my tongue right now, but my main goal is to just do better what I'm doing.
Hmm.
And I think that's expanding into there again, marketing the beef. I think that's a huge profit center there, especially and it is truly it's not just selling the beef and that, but it's a social thing. It's a communication thing between the buyer and the seller and yeah, just to do better what I'm doing. I've got in some arenas I have a big gap there where I want to be at the end where I'm not there yet today. It's my system isn't perfect. I don't think anybody's is, but it's very workable and I'm going to go back and say it's been very profitable doing it this way.
Yeah.
It may not be the prettiest, may not be actually. I've got 2.8 acres and a bean right in the middle of a big diagonal across the bean field where I cleaned the sprayer out. I dinged the beans, so we planted corn in there. So and it's right by a major highway, so I have a lot of people wondering what I'm doing with that. But this is what you do. I don't work. It doesn't make a difference to me. I don't care. But
Yeah.
that's an it's not a mistake. It's an experiment.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I like that attitude there. Yeah. So, Greg, my experience has been to do what you're doing, you have to be a good producer and a good marketer. And that oftentimes is not found within the same human body. Sometimes it is, and I think you do a good job with both, but are you working with other, do you have other people on your team that lean more towards the marketing? Or are you looking at partnering with some other folks who can, help ramp up that marketing side? Or, do you have family members that are involved in this, or what does that look like?
Um, no, no, and no. I kind of do everything. My wife does the book work. She's retired from haymaking anyway, but she does a lot of the other runaround stuff and different things here. But I guess my biggest problem is I'm a 24/7 guy in my I just love what I'm doing, and it's not a chore, but I do get overwhelmed sometimes. One of the things we're trying to do, my wife and I graduated the same year, but I'm 68 and I'm not going to tell you her age, but
Wise
um,
man.
yes, I've learned this the last couple of years through our 48 years of marriage. Um, but we're in the process of transitioning our farm to, I'd like to get three young, so this is an advertisement here, three young people to transition our farm over to.
Hmm.
And we run about 2,200 acres, row crop acres now, plus pasture and livestock. Very profitable. I can almost be the banker. And I have a local fella here. I've actually had people from halfway across the country come in and visit and different things and long story, but so I thought I'm going to look in the county, and actually the one fellow I was thinking about, known him since he was born, and he's known me since he was a little fella, grew up 2 miles from me, and he started this spring, and if I had three of him, we'd be off and running. Just a
Good.
great young man, and so, we're doing different things. I actually have an intern from the county south of me, a young lady that is going to Kishwaukee College in Cedar Rapids. She decided to intern with me because of the regenerative practices her family wants to do. And they're getting with the virtual fencing. Their family just started the virtual fencing too, kind of maybe off of some of my lead or direction. And it's these young people just keep you energized and going too. I
Mhm.
still might need a nap in the middle of the day, but they keep me going, in between. But
Well,
things are good. I can barely
well,
keep up with it, but things are good.
yeah, well, that may be true, and you may need a nap, but let the record reflect it's still going to take three of them to replace what you're doing. So
Well, that's why, and there again, um, my wife and I, and then we have two hired men.
Mhm.
I'm going to say loose hired men here, and they've done an excellent job for me. But to transition this over, we're actually feeding three families now. To
Yeah,
transition it over, we need the youth and someone that can take what I'm doing on the Regenified, the soil health stuff, cover crops, all this mentality is to take it to the next step. I do not want it to go back into conventional, like
yeah.
if I have anything to do about it. It's got to move forward, and the opportunity is great there for that.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's such a great and important attitude. And I think the podcast episode that we released a couple weeks ago with John Kemp, we were talking about regenerating communities, and do we have that capacity? And that's not going to happen without people like you, Greg, that are saying, I want someone local. I'll help you. I'll support you. I can finance you. I can coach you. And that's far too rare, unfortunately. But when it happens, that's what makes our community strong. That's how it used to be, and that's how we
Mhm.
need to get back to. And John, coming out of that Amish background, they see so much more of that in their communities, and it's rare, but it's very gratifying to see it happen. With folks like you who are committed to building and restoring and keeping what you've grown for the future.
Well, we're like I say, this isn't a done deal yet, but I hope we can find the right people. And I truly think, and I've told these, everyone's real hesitant coming into this and talking with, say, another new party coming in. And I tell everyone, my idea is if you're regenerative, if you have the regenerative mindset, you think completely different than a conventional farmer.
Hmm.
And I said, it's I tell these people it's not about me, it's not about my family, it's not about you, it's not about your family, it's about the land, it's about the soil, it's about what we're producing. And if you keep that in mind, the money's going to come. It just does. That's the way I've always been in my whole career. You do the right things, you do the proper things, you take care of things, you're a good person, you treat people right. It works because your mindset and your philosophy is completely different
Hmm.
than some other people. I'm not naming names because I don't know people. I won't say that, but the mindset's completely different.
Yeah. And I think especially, when you're direct marketing to a consumer, consumers are smart people. They pick up on that. They know that. And that's the type, they will more likely buy from someone they trust than someone
Mhm.
they think is, doing all organic or whatever. I think trust is the number one thing that they are looking for when they're looking for a food source.
Yeah. One of the things I did talk with our corn. Actually, we're loading 4 containers tomorrow, the last 4 containers of this batch of corn to go to California. Um, I did talk, and that corn actually goes out to Diesel's turkey farm or turkey ranch out there. They produce 1 million birds a year.
Hmm.
Very successful.
A lot of
Uh,
turkeys.
some of the background, they were the first turkey supplier to Whole Foods when they had a store in California, a store in Texas,
Hmm.
and they've been with them since then. But I talked to Jason Diesel out there the other day. He actually was coming back from the Regenerative Summit that they had in Kentucky. He was getting on a plane, and we talked about a half hour and talking about the marketing end. And he said too that the people that he sells to or wants to buy their turkeys is that their mindset is if you can produce that bird cheaper because of how you're doing it, you should be able to sell it to us cheaper. They're not looking at nutrient density. They're not looking at the
Yeah.
quality of the meat. And I think that's the biggest hurdle. I got thinking about this yesterday. That's the biggest hurdle about what we want to do as I'm going to speak for myself through Regenified, but to Regenified or any other organization with nutrient dense food, quality food, is that once it kind of leaves our farm, no matter if it's a turkey or a beef or a grain or whatever, someone else has control of how much profit's there.
Hmm.
And they do control your profit. And that's going to be the biggest hurdle. And at the Nexus 2 years ago, when you had all the larger food manufacturers there, um, they can't segregate this stuff.
No.
They're too big.
They're too
I mean,
big. They're too
they
big to
cannot
work with
do it.
individuals. Yeah.
Yes, they cannot do that. So how somehow, and if you're too big of a producer, if you're a large feedlot producer for livestock, which probably wouldn't be regenified anyway, but you need that. You're just producing commodities,
Yeah.
basically is what it amounts to. You're not producing, in my mind, nutrient dense food. You're not producing the top quality that needs to be there for a premium price. Um, so I, I think there's a big hurdle there. And I Jason actually had told me that in the industry, if they can buy, let's use his turkeys, for example. If they can buy those turkeys, the person that he's dealing with at a specific company, if he can get if that company can buy those turkeys for a dime less, that how the system is set up, that person that dealing with him, he'll get a percentage of that savings. So I'm going to say it's all about money. I don't care if it's personal money or corporate money. It's all about
Yeah.
money. And I'm going to go off on the pharmaceutical end. I've got some second cousins that two young ladies, and I don't know if they're doing that yet or not, but they were flying all over the country selling pharmaceutical products. and they were making big money. And all they were doing is selling to doctors. And I don't know what the system is, but they were working for these pharmaceutical companies, and it's crazy the amount of margin in that stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, there it isn't getting down to the actually the person that's we all know it's not getting back down to the farmer. Let's just put it that way. We've got to hang on to that product longer. We have to do just an example for my beef. Yeah, I have nothing to hide, and I tell people this. But by the time we slaughter beef, or the beef price and the processing price, I can put total cost in your freezer either. I'm going to say either side of $8 a pound,
And that's for
and that's probably
steaks
going
as
to be a
well as,
high
yeah.
choice, the prime animal. And every time you go to that freezer, you're going to have quality meat in there. It's not like going to the store this week, you get a good piece, next week you don't, all this other stuff.
Right.
So, and that's direct. I mean, that's from my feedlot to the freezer, the customer's freezer. That's some people say, oh, that's too high. Well, that's pretty cheap when you get into the city and you get different because it would be double that in there.
Yeah, it's only high if you're comparing it to, like a cheap ground beef, but you got to look at
That's right.
quality
Yes.
and that's the thing about, what Regenified and these other certification programs,
Mhm.
the need to help you and me and everyone else do is, to convince the consumer of the value of higher nutrient density. And I think hopefully we're only scratching the surface of that. And as new tools and new technology comes out to help consumers both identify and appreciate, that higher quality food, that was grown in a way that contributes to nutrient density, that they'll be willing to pay for it. And I think they will if they understand what it is.
Well, and you've probably heard this too, that, and I don't know all the details, but what the uh, SNAP program and that, they want to pull pop out of there and some processed foods and like potato chips and Doritos and all that stuff. Um, and some of these legislators are having a fit. They don't, that discriminates that family going to the grocery store and not being able to buy that. That discriminates against them. And how are they going to feel going through the checkout line and all that? But the thing of it is, it's the health thing. We've lost this whole health thing. Uh,
Yeah.
People don't understand good food from bad food. Uh, I tell people, going back to my livestock eat healthier than I do because they don't eat processed foods.
Yeah.
I consume processed foods now and then.
Yeah.
They don't. They eat whole foods all the time. I mean, I process them by baling them or chopping them, but I don't take ingredients out of those foods
Yeah.
or those
Yeah. No,
stuff.
that's a great
So,
point.
so I just there there needs to be a lot of education in my mindset. The biggest hurdle regenerative farming has is is um actually everything that the farmer deals with. Everything that the farmer buys from, every business. I don't care if it's equipment, uh, you know, all these equipment manufacturers that want to sell tillage, they want to sell products for the profitability. I understand that, but they're the biggest culprit as far as tillage machines, the bigger tractors we have. You go into the seed industry, you go into even the pharmaceutical end, when you start talking nutrient density and we can help you be healthy. And then there's at least 10. And the next one is, I don't think the bankers are on board with this. Because think about it. I don't borrow near the amount of money I did years ago because I don't have to spend it on fertilizer. I don't
Yeah.
have to spend it on all these other. I have less equipment debt. I have all this other stuff because I don't have all this other stuff because I don't have it. So
You don't need it. Yeah.
it's going to be a big movement. It truly is. I think there's going to be more headwind in this, and I think we realize the concept is fantastic, and I'm all on board for it. And we just have to keep chiseling away and elbowing ahead. I think, Keith.
Yeah. Well, Greg, this conversation gives me hope and encouragement that, more and more people can do this. And so folks, if you've been listening to this, we can help you out with, if you want to interseed into corn, We've got quite a bit of experience with that. We'll be doing our corn interseeding experiments here at our green cover plots. You can come visit that during our summer field days. If you're interested in the Regenified program, you can reach out to those folks. You can find them online. Say I just did some webinars for them. They're really good people that can help you down that path towards, marketing your regeneratively grown products and then get involved. Part of the reason, Greg, I think that you're doing all these things is because you're an active learner. You go out and you research things, and I really appreciate that because not everybody does that. You take the initiative to go out and learn new things and then implement them. Not always easy to do, but it's what makes it fun, right?
That's exactly right. I've had more fun farming the last years I've been doing this my prior whole career. It's
Yeah.
just amazing. And the people, your group and all the other people and all the programs, the if you get into the mindset of these other people that are similar to you, it's phenomenal. It truly is.
Yeah, it really is. And Greg, you've mentioned a couple times the Regenerative Nexus Summits. Green Cover puts those on. We do one in Scottsdale. We do one in Omaha every year. So if you're interested in that, give us a call here at Green Cover. We'd be more than happy to, talk to you about that. And by the time this airs, we'll already have been done with our Nicole Masters event, but we're having Nicole Masters come in for a couple days. So we really value education, and we really value people like Greg who are willing to put the time into educating themselves. So, Greg, any last thoughts? Any encouragement to people who are kind of on the edge and thinking about trying some of this? What encouragement could you give them to kind of get them going?
Don't be afraid to try things. There again, everyone says start on a few acres or a lower scale. Try to hook up with someone that's been doing this. I get a lot of calls. I'm more than happy to help people if I can. There's a lot of good information out there, and there's no sense a new person trying to reinvent the wheel. These people can take off, years ahead of where I was at if they go talk to someone. I do not know all the answers, and I think anyone will tell you that this year is going to be different than last year, and it's going to be different than next year. Simple as that.
Yeah.
But you have to keep plugging forward, and the benefits that we've seen with soil health and the whole gamut of the livestock and everything, unbelievable in my mind, just
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Well, Greg, thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise and the passion that clearly comes through. And thank you, everyone, for joining this episode of the Green Cover Podcast. My brother and I started Green Cover in 2009 because we understand what it's like to be a farmer starting out on the journey to improve soil health. We saw the power of plant and biological diversity on our own farm here in Nebraska, but we found that it was difficult to get the right cover crop seed mix. We also learned that there was a big learning curve in successfully implementing cover crops. That's why we built Green Cover, so that farmers like you can access the highest quality cover crop seed put into the right diverse mixes, along with the technical advice and the educational resources to help you successfully implement cover crops on your own operation. So contact us today and we'll help you with the right cover crop mix for your farm or ranch so you can regenerate your portion of God's creation for future generations.